Hey everyone, it's Nightharo here, and today I want to talk about Shock Reach. And this is primarily a video for healers. So those of you who've been keeping an eye on the channel, you know that I've talked about Arctic Blast recently before the last patch. And then, with the last patch, now brittled ends are very much a thing. So I've got a video on how to make a brittled end for those interested. But I was recommending that healers could use Ice Reach as a way of applying minor brittle. But now again, with a brittled end, that becomes much less important. And ideally in an optimized group, in any kind of optimized trial group at least, you're going to have a brittled end in that group. And so you don't actually need to run that anymore, at least not in a lot of situations. So that kind of frees up some bar space. And one thing that I've been seeing a lot of with some of the highest parses and the most meta setups now is that a lot of people are back to using the Exploiter passive because it's changed and been given some buffs. So what that does is it puts us in a situation as a healer where we might want to go back to a lightning staff, which historically, has been good. And then it was an ice staff. And now I think we're kind of back to the situation where at least one healer, I think, should have a lightning staff. And the reason for that is because of this Exploiter passive. And what it does, it just increases the damage done by our DPS whenever an enemy is off balance. And that's what provides the best parse. But off balance has a 100% uptime on the dummy. And when I say 100%, I mean 100% theoretical uptime. There is a cooldown. So basically you procced the concuss status effect on a target that is also standing in your wall of elements, and that sets them off balance. And then when an opponent is off balance, the DPS do more damage for that period of time, and then there's a cooldown. So basically you can proc off balance every 22 seconds. Is the idea here. So you proc it lasts for 7 seconds, you got a additional 15 seconds of cooldown, and then you can re-proc it again. And all you need to do to proc it is your opponent needs to be standing in your wall of elements with a lightning staff, so your lightning wall, and it could be either morph or wall of elements, it doesn't matter which one, and then you just need to proc off balance. Now there's several ways to do that. There's small percentages that enchants can do it, your wall can even do it, etc., but the easiest way to make sure you always get it procced is to use Shock Reach. And you can use Shock Clench as well. Either is actually fine, but doing that has a guaranteed chance of applying the concuss status effect, and as long as your wall of elements is down, it will set them off balance. And so you're really going to want to be doing this now, especially with all the meta DPS builds having gone to using Exploiter. A lot of DPS, they don't even probably realize that that Exploiter passive is so efficient on the dummy because it's always up. It's automatically applied. So if you're in content, that might not necessarily be happening. So this is something that a healer can do pretty well because DPS can lose some of their DPS if they're using a lightning staff instead of an inferno staff. So Frost Reach is our way to do it. Now, if you are on PC, and don't worry if you're not on PC, I will get there, don't worry. But if you are on PC, the first thing I would probably recommend that you do is to download an add-on that's going to be really helpful. And I've mentioned this before in my Arctic Blast video and a few other videos, I believe. But the add-on to Buff Me is really great, and it's by Flo Leroy. This add-on is great. So what it does is you have 4 spots around your reticle that you can set it to track different debuffs. And you see here, I've got off balance and minor vulnerability. The other thing that Concussed itself applies minor vulnerability. Now, in most groups, you'll get that from a Warden. Their Fetcher will apply that debuff. Nightblades can do it in AoE with her Teleport Strike, but you can do it with single target by just using Shock Reach to guarantee the application of the Concussed status effect, which will apply minor vulnerability. So I put it on here just so you can see how it applies. It only lasts for 4 seconds. I think this is more of a 4-man kind of dungeon sort of thing if you want to be using this to help buff your group's DPS on a boss if you don't already have a Warden in a group. Unfortunately, even the AoE version of using Shock Reach or Shock Clench, one of them does AoE damage. It does not apply minor vulnerability in an AoE, unfortunately, so you really have to rely on a Nightblade if you want that. It's the same thing with off balance. It's only going to apply to one target. So if you have this, then you can just use it and it'll give you the timer. When it is white, that is the duration of off balance that is ticking down, and then when it turns red, that's the cooldown. And so as soon as that timer runs out, you just use Shock Reach to reapply. Now, if you're on console, you're like, well, that doesn't help me, Nightharo. I don't have add-ons. Well, the good news, Shock Reach lasts for 20 seconds now, which is pretty nice, significant amount of time, but the cooldown is 22 seconds. So what you can do is you can put your wall of elements down, hit Shock Reach, wait for it to fall off, cast 2 more skills, that'll be 2 GCDs, and then use Frost Reach again to reapply. I know that's not perfect, but you know, those of you on console are probably used to doing this kind of thing, keeping track of these mental timers. And honestly, it can be a little bit fun to be able to keep track of them. The problem is when you want to keep track of like 5 or 6, or you're trying to raid lead. I get it. I know it's a lot harder for you guys, but this is one way you can do that on console. And that's really all you have to do. Anyways, guys, that's just a quick video here. For those of you who are curious, I did give this as an option as far as running this CP on my Brittleton video. I'm not sure if it's out yet at the date of this video, but it'll only be a few days or a week at most out. That I'll have a Necro DPS, including an EC setup. And on that, I do recommend using the Exploiter passive. And I honestly think most builds moving forward should be using it. But first, we need to make sure we get our healers on board with using probably this skill. But there are other ways to do it as well. But I think this is the best way, at least in my mind, to keep up 100% uptime. So I wanted to get this out there. So anyways, that's it for this video today. I appreciate you guys watching. If you want to see more videos like this or watch me live stream, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And if you want to get pings whenever I'm going live or I put out a new video, make sure to hit the bell icon as well. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next one.